You are currently drifting through a temporal void, an endless loop of digital noise where the hours seem to evaporate without leaving a single trace on your soul. We like to imagine that time is a fixed constant measured by the steady ticking of a clock, but for your brain, time is actually a linguistic construct that is currently being dismantled by the very environment you work in. For nearly 300,000 years, your ancestors existed in a world defined by a brutal binary rhythm, the blinding light of the sun and the absolute terrifying weight of the dark. In that era, the setting sun wasn't just a signal to rest. It was a hard wall that ended a functional day, forcing humans into trees or caves to avoid becoming prey for predators that owned the night. Then, roughly 1 million years ago, we tamed fire. And in doing so, we didn't just gain warmth, we invented the first extra hours of the human experience. This circle of light, roughly 30 feet in diameter, became a sanctuary where the rules of existence shifted overnight. During the day, language was a cold, pragmatic tool used for the logistics of survival, focused on the where and how of the hunt. But at night, around that flicker of flame, 81% of our conversations transformed into stories, myths, and jokes. This was the moment human culture was born, a transition from discussing the immediate present to imagining things that did not yet exist. Language became the skeleton of our reality, a framework that allowed us to trap the fluid passage of experience and turn it into a permanent record. This is why you have no memories of being a toddler. Your infant brain was recording every sensory detail, but it lacked the linguistic container to hold them. Before you had words, your life was a series of raw, disconnected impressions, textures, sounds, and emotions that were eventually overwritten by the explosive growth of new neurons. This process of neurogenesis, while essential for building your adult mind, acted like a demolition crew, tearing down the old walls of your identity to make room for the person you are now. You essentially died to your younger self because you lack the narrative structure to keep that version of you alive. Once we unlocked this narrative power, our species didn't just evolve, we accelerated it at a pace that defies every rule of biology. While other intelligent animals like dolphins or chimpanzees have remained stagnant for millions of years, humans went from sharpened flint to the International Space Station in what amounts to a geological blink. We developed the ability to stack knowledge across generations, using language to ensure that each new life didn't have to start from zero. We moved into conceptual space, building roles and ideas that allowed us to transcend our physical limitations. But now, something has gone wrong in the way we structure our world, particularly in the workspaces where we spend the majority of our lives. We have effectively created a universe 25 for ourselves, a controlled environment of abundance where every physical threat has been removed and the friction of survival has vanished. In the 1960s, researchers found that when a society is given unlimited resources but no meaningful roles to fill, the social fabric begins to disintegrate. The population doesn't just stop growing. It collapses into a state of behavioral sink, where individuals become listless, grooming themselves obsessively, and opting out of the species entirely. Your time blindness in the office or at your desk is a symptom of this same collapse. We have flooded our nights with artificial light, especially the blue light from screens that tricks our retinas into believing it is forever noon. This has killed the first and second sleep cycle that defined human existence for millennia, a rhythm where people would wake in the middle of the night for 2 hours of quiet, meditative reflection. That window of the watch was a distinct state of consciousness, fueled by prolactin and a sense of peace that modern humans have traded for a light switch. Without that period of stillness, and without a narrative role that feels essential to the survival of the tribe, your brain stops measuring time. When every day is a repeat of the last, with no friction and no story to tell, your hippocampus treats the experiences as redundant and fails to encode them as distinct episodes. You become like the beautiful ones in the mouse colony, functionally healthy, yet spiritually dead, moving through a world where every social role feels already filled and every hour feels identical. We are an invasive species on our own planet, built for the struggle of the savannah, but trapped in a cage of our own design. The only way to reclaim your perception of time is to reintroduce ideational generativity, the act of building new conceptual roles and narratives that give the friction of life a purpose. Language is not just a way to talk. It is the only tool we have to stop the death of the spirit that occurs when we live without a story to tell. The history of our species is the history of words fighting back against the dark. And if you stop telling your own story, the dark will eventually win. If this exploration of the human narrative helped you see the clock differently, subscribe and join us as we continue to map the architecture of the mind.